Hello and welcome to Htek's YouTube channel. In this video, I would like to introduce HPT, which is Htek Provision Tool. It's a tool we developed to work with Htek IP phones. In this one tool, there are multiple functions including visualized editing, configuration files batch generating, device detection, device management, IP phone manual provisioning, PMP, configuration file server, and firmware server. It can realize configuring and provisioning Htek IP phones within the local LAN conveniently and swiftly. We'll learn about what this tool does and how to use it. First, let's take a look at HPT's folder structure. Inside the folder in which HPT resides, there are several subfolders. Let me explain what every folder contains. Cache contains the cache generated when HPT is running, and you don't need to worry about it. DB contains database files of the devices that are under management of HPT's management module. Default stores parameter configurations of HPT's phone configuration module, plus Htek IP phone's default configuration templates. INI contains configuration files of HPT running. Models contains sample files of the CSV files that are imported into HPT. Server is a working folder of HTTP's built-in HTTP server. Configuration files and firmware files are stored in CFG folder and FW folder respectively. These DLL files are the dynamic link library files needed for HPT running. Now, let me introduce every working module of HPT. First, phone configuration module. On the right, we can configure all sorts of parameters, like filling in SIP server address. For example, here, we can select an account and fill in its SIP server address as 192.168.0.68. Some configurations are filled in the form of variables because these configurations values are not shared by all IP phones. Instead, they vary from phone to phone, like SIP user ID. Different phones register different accounts, thus use different SIP user IDs. To fulfill needs like this, it's necessary to add variables into configuration. At the same time, there will be a need to generate configuration files in batches for a large number of IP phones. This can be realized in CFG batch module. To generate configuration files in batches through CFG batch, we need to import a device list which uses MAC address as a sole identification. In folder samples, we provide a template you can import based on the phone's MAC address. As you can see, this template contains 5 columns. Column 1 is the phone's MAC, which is the sole identification of every IP phone. From column 2 to column 5 are all variables, which correspond to the parameters of HPT's phone configuration module, namely SIP user ID. Authenticate ID. Authenticate password. And display name. The variables in the template are preset. You can configure new variables according to your need, as long as the imported CSV file can correspond to HPT's configurations. In CFG batch module, click Load CSV file and select the device list. In this demonstration, we choose Mac mode sample.csv and import it. Before generating configuration, please tick Autofill server path and fill in config server path and firmware server path. If you are not aware of what you should fill, or you don't have HTTP server, HPT has its own built-in server, and in here you can fill it in. According to the different settings of HPT running on your PC, here we provide an example expressed with wildcard characters. And here is a specific example. We assume that the IP of the PC on which HPT is running is 10.3.0.70 and the set port is 8000. Then what we should fill in is this. While generating configuration files in batches, if you want to customize the storage path, you can select batch and select the path you want. Or you can select batch to built-in server. This operation will directly put the generated configuration files into the CFG folder in the built-in server. In this CFG file, we can see P-code of SIP user ID is P35, and its value is what's been filled in CSV 2001. Authenticated ID's P-code is P36, and its value is what's been filled in CSV 2001. Authenticated password's P-code is P34, and its value is 62. Display name's P-code is P3, and its value is 2001. After generating configuration files, we need to provision for IP phones. Device Discover module is used to scan and discover Htek devices in a specified network. There are two ways to specify the network. First one is to automatically acquire the network range according to the network of the PC on which HPT is running. Second is to configure the network range that needs to be scanned manually in subnet mode. Take subnet mode as an example. Click Discover Devices. HPT tool will start scanning the selected network. When scanning is over, a hint, Discover Devices Finished, will pop up. Scanning results contain 6 columns, namely online status, vendor, mode, IP, MAC, versions. Among them, there are 4 columns for which you can filter scanning results, namely online status, vendor, mode, and version. In the IP column in scanning results, while holding Control button, click IP, and the device's web page will be opened with the default browser. Next, we need to select the phones we want to provision. There are several ways of selecting. First one is to click the number to select, and the selected object's number will turn green. Click again and it will be unselected. Second way is to left-click the empty area above the number column, and all the listed results will be selected. Click again and it will be unselected. The third is to drag and select. For example, you can select the devices in the middle of the scanned results. Click the first number of the devices, hold and drag the mouse downward, and don't let go of the left button of your mouse until the last one of the devices. And all devices that the mouse drags through will be selected. To unselect, you can left-click numbers or double-click the empty area above the number column. After selecting the device, right-click and Operating Manual will pop up. The first item, Provision, and the second item, Upgrade, are similar. They send a command of synchronized configuration to the phone and trigger the phone to configure synchronously and to upgrade via the firmware path in the configuration. This command needs collaboration of HTTP server, which will be mentioned in servers/settings module. The third one, Refresh, is used to refresh the status of the selected devices. For example, when the phones are not online, after refreshing, the online status will be shown as off. The fourth item is to reboot the selected devices. This function needs configuring of the web login username and password of the selected devices, and this is done in action URL command. Now, let's come to servers/settings module. In previous introduction, we mentioned that provision command and upgrade command requires HTTP server. In here, you can choose to use a built-in HTTP server or use an external HTTP server. If you choose to use built-in HTTP server, please make sure that the port number, which is 8000 by default, is not being used by other programs, and this port number can go through firewall. After that, click Start to enable built-in HTTP server. If you choose to use an external HTTP server, please fill in the corresponding URL of CFG file. For example, http://10.3.0.70/CFG. Please note that when you use an external HTTP server, you don't need to click Start. PNP server is used to send the sync configured URL when the phone boots. By the way, for this, you need to enable the PNP function on the phone. PNP server needs to work together with HTTP server. That is all about Htek Provision Tool. If you have any doubts or questions, please feel free to contact us. We're always happy to help. And please check out other videos on this channel to learn more about our products and tools. Thank you for watching and see you next time.